trying to cope during the pandemic, many people are in need of comfort.
And while some would go to church for solace, it's not an option at the moment. Fox 2's Maurielle is here. She got to talk to Pastor John Gray. I've really been looking forward to this interview all morning now.
Good. I like to send you his little video clips when I can. I was so excited about this story. It was a great, I know, sometimes you're like, okay, I didn't ask you for this. But I had a great conversation with Pastor John Gray. We spoke about changing the way that we worship, because that's really what many people have had to do during this coronavirus pandemic. And he also talked about how to keep the faith.
I believe this is a virus that was sent to remind us how fragile life is, of how important it is to maximize every moment. I think that's what faith is for. Faith is not for the good times. Faith is for the times that make no sense. Faith is for the moments that we don't understand. Faith is for the moments when it's darkest.
Moments like this, nearly 100,000 Americans killed by the coronavirus, hateful imagery, nooses and Confederate flags, anger boiling over as fear of the unknown seems to be getting the best of us. It's moments like this when many look for something to believe in, a bit of hope to hold on to.
I need you to get bad and bougie with what God's about to do in your life. You done been through hell. You done been through pain. You done been through lack. You done been through loss. You might as well start walking like a boss.
Pastor John Gray, one of the most prolific preachers of our time, head pastor of Relentless Church in South Carolina. His one-of-a-kind, down-to-earth delivery garnered him a global following in the millions. Every Sunday, the online community tuned in from the States to Europe and beyond. Most have never even seen the pastor in person, but they are loyal. That's why when the pandemic forced the doors of his church to close, Relentless thrived.
How has taking your service online completely changed things for you?
Oh man, we're more creative. I get to be more free. I get to have conversations. I'm more conversational in my approach. I also think of other ways to express myself. So it's great. It's been a great opportunity for me to be able to try some new things.
When you are hurting and you feel like no one is there, and even your closest friends fall asleep on you, and you're by yourself in the middle of the garden and your enemies are on their way to take you out, you need to know that it's okay to not be okay.
We are literally seeing unprecedented growth online. People have been uncommonly kind and generous. We've been able to feed the people in our community. We've been able to drop off groceries to the elderly. We're doing the things that a church should do. And so we're not confined to the building.
What do you say to people now who feel stuck and maybe forced to choose between their livelihoods and their life?
I think this virus was sent to remind us that every human being that we'll ever see has equal inherent value, that we should treat each other right, with dignity, respect. And even if I don't agree with you, that doesn't give me a right to dishonor you. Those are the things that I've learned. And my faith has informed the way I treat every other human being.
Several churches here in Michigan and really across the country, we've seen churches that are choosing to keep church open because they feel like they should. Here in Michigan, there is talk of some of the pastors trying to get together and sue the governor to be able to get into church now. What are you looking to be the sign for your church to reopen?
Well, I think the sign for me is a flattening of this curve. I'm very practical in this regard. My faith is not confined to a building. I have no comment on what pastors desire to do or how they navigate their own congregations. But if I have an 80-year-old church mother, I'm not going to bring her to a building to sit her next to a stranger who could be asymptomatic, coughs once, and now there's a disease in her lungs that ends her life prematurely, just so I can say that I joined. Now, there are people who say you lack faith. It takes more faith to keep your doors closed as a nonprofit than to keep them open. So that's a non-starter for me. The faith that I have also informed me to make the wisest decision for the most people. I don't think the church should be the control group on how this virus transmits.
Sometimes I find myself praying, and then you realize you're praying about the same thing. And if you're supposed to give it to God, how many times are you supposed? I mean, you just wonder if you're doing it right.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. The beautiful thing about a relationship with God is there's a scripture that says we cry out with a spirit of adoption, Abba, Father, which literally means Daddy God. And so this idea of the far off God that I can't connect to is juxtaposed with the father relationship, the daddy son or the daddy daughter relationship, where I can be vulnerable, where I can ask the same question 50 times like my son does every day. And he asks questions he already knows the answer to, and I have to answer it again. And I do it with a smile on my face, because it's not so much that he wants to know, he wants to be reassured. So there's nothing wrong with you talking to God over and over about the same thing. We all need reassurance. We're just kids after all. And we've never been this way before. None of us who are living have seen anything like this. So we need to give ourselves the grace to navigate this and not know all the answers. It's okay to not be okay.
It was a great, open and honest conversation. If I could have laid down on the couch and, it all started when I was 9. I would have loved to get his advice on just so many things, because he is so positive and he does say things in a way that it really catches, I think, the average person. It's very relatable. We also got to talk about depression at a time like this, what to do to pull yourself out of that, and some of his favorite quarantine snacks. So I will bring some of that to you guys throughout the weeks. He talked about something called popcorners, which he described as Doritos with a kettle corn flair.
I'm in.
So I'm gonna have to look those up and try them. Right, yes. I said I'll try it. It sounds good.
We'll get our food, and then we'll listen to his online sermon, and we will be good. Al, thank you so much. That was really uplifting.
Yes.